tell us a little bit about your background, your history growing up? Like, what was that like for you?
Absolutely. Well, first and foremost, thank you for asking me to be part of this series. I'm quite excited. In terms of my background, so I was actually born in Pakistan in 1982. So you can do the math there. And my parents had an arranged marriage. We're still trying to figure out what their real life was going to look like. They didn't really have much time to plan it, outside of the fact that they had known each other for probably about 60 days, which was generous, I guess, at that point in time. And my dad, a couple of months into it, got accepted to do his PhD in Boston. So him and my mother moved right after I was born, and I grew up in Boston, core of the city. My dad was a student, ended up working a bunch of odd jobs trying to make sure that he could still go to school as well as make sure that we paid the rent. My mother learned English while she was working in Boston. And my brother and I growing up, would teach them English simply because we were going to school there and obviously being more educated from like a real-time basis than they were on any given day. So having grown up in Boston was a bit of a surreal experience too, given that I grew up in very much Southie Boston. So there's not a ton of colored people, or there weren't, at least at that time when I was growing up. And I went to a Catholic high school, Catholic grade school, and we're not Catholic. So it was a bit odd to begin with, when everyone else would be going to confession and I'd want to go to confession, and they were like, sorry, you cannot go confess any of your sins. But that being said, it was great in that I felt like an oddball at times, but that being said, it also really taught me about the things that were really important to me, as well as where my major insecurities used to lie as a child. Me and my brother were the only two colored kids in the school, plus the black kid, Sean. And we had a Chinese New Year presentation, and I had to do it. Okay. So that's how white we're talking right now. But
what was that like? Did that influence you at all? Did other people comment on it, or was?
Well, my parents were like, you're not Chinese, right? And I was like, no, absolutely. But if Pakistan borders China, like, I think they're trying to make some sort of like, it's as close as they've got right now. And if they're trying to be multicultural in any capacity, I'm going to be part of it, of course. So that being said, I don't regret any part of that part of my life, just because you learn so much about yourself now that I look back to it, versus when I was younger and my name was Ayesha and I wished it was Ashley. So now I wouldn't change my name for $1 million.
Why was that? Like, what were you feeling at that time?
Ugly and like left out and not like everyone else. And when you're a kid, obviously fitting in is the biggest thing possible, and you're not wanting to be unique, or at least I wasn't. I just didn't look like everyone else, and the cute boys had crushes on the Ashleys of the world, not the Ayeshas of the world. So it was definitely not like, my parents could tell me I was lovelier and all these things, but you really get to, like, I just studied real hard then, and that was my skill set. And then the cute boys would want to be my partner because they knew they'd get A's. So you just figure out what your skill set's going to be and hone in on that. But I mean, you just want to fit in, right?
Yeah, I guess, people want to fit in. A lot of people don't realize in certain ways that how other people don't fit in, though.
Oh, absolutely not. And I don't think the other girls even realized it until like, it was something I would articulate maybe to my teacher or whatnot in like a certain capacity, and that however it would come up, and they didn't see it, I saw it. Because kids, honestly, I think maybe I thought they saw more of it versus how much they had actually came across now that I look back to it.
Interesting. And did that go through like after elementary school, like into high school and that?
It kind of did almost. It was a weird transition in that when I started high school, we moved to Toronto. So, well, actually we moved to Brampton. So I went from Southie Boston to Brampton, Ontario. And now I actually fit in based on my aesthetics, except for the fact that I was too white for everyone else. So when like the first day of school and I walked in, like I was wearing like a ball cap and a t-shirt and like my shorts, just whatever. And all the girls stared at me being like, what is wrong with her? So all of a sudden I just became way too much of a white brown girl. So it really resonated in that, listen, there is never going to be any sort of fitting in. So you do you at this point. And in terms of a culture shock, that's probably the biggest one I've ever had. But again, no regrets, and because you really learn how resilient you can be when faced with starting high school in a brand new country where you clearly feel like the oddball out.
And going through that process, is that still something you hold on to, I guess, years later, like that?
I honestly would not change my background or aesthetics or any part of me now, just having gone through that process. I think it's one of the things that I'm most proud of. And one of the things it's who I am, and you just really grow into, well, I did at least, into who I was supposed to be, and this is part of me, just, it is, and it's impacted every decision I've made, it's impacted every decision everyone else has made regarding me, and it's brought me to where I am now. So any regrets? Absolutely not. Would I have wished I was born a different color? No. Or a different gender? Absolutely not. So you do think back to maybe some of those traumatic moments in your life where, I'm trying to go into certain examples here, and I don't know if I should, but think back to some of those traumatic moments in your life where you're just not the right fit. But now I could not be happier that I was not the right fit. Okay. If that makes sense.
Do you want to talk about any of your examples? Otherwise, we can move on.
We're going to move on.
Right. You can take it. Right. Okay, great. So then after high school, looking at going to university, how did you decide what to go into?
So in high school, I was, we still had OAC, so grade 13. For the people that did not know, that it was a grade 13 in Ontario for quite some time. And in grade 13, I focused on drama, which I loved, theater. I took French, I took a lot of the arts. And when it came time to apply for, I did good in the maths and the sciences as well, but it was definitely not something that I was interested in going into. And when it came time to actually apply to schools, my dad's an economist by trade, and he's like, okay, so here are the economics programs through all of the country. And I was like, I want to study drama or history, being the two things that I was generally most interested in. And can I swear? They were literally fuck no. We did not come here and go bust our asses for you to end up doing what your heart wants you to do in this very moment. Because you'll regret it later, Ayesha, and all these wonderful things. And I get it now that I think back to it, but obviously in the moment I was like, how am I going to study economics for a year? Supply and demand graphs did not thrill me whatsoever. And I thought I was made for the stage, clearly. So it was something that I was somewhat distraught about. I'm always going to do what my dad tells me to do. To this day, I cannot get a third hole in my ear because he won't allow it. Literally, I only got the second hole pierced 3 years ago and fully had to get his permission when I turned 35. Wow. So he was like, you're studying economics? Great, I studied economics. Took extracurriculars or did things on the side that would satiate my actual artistic side. I say that in quotes because it's very much like that. And it was fun. I actually ended up really, very much so enjoying economics. I am a very rational mind, and I think more of it came out when I was doing it. And then right after my undergrad, I was like, okay, so what's next? My dad's like, your master's, naturally. I was like, of course it is. So then I did my MBA in finance right after my undergrad. And once I finished my MBA, so that was 6 years straight, it was time to pay back my school loans. So there was not going to be any going to Hollywood anytime soon. So yeah.
So getting a job.
Getting a job was priority number one.
Yeah. And so did you, now being in real estate, did you know at the time you wanted to go into real estate?
I didn't even know real estate really existed, by any means. It was, my internships were at SVP Capital in the prime brokerage, as well as an accounting group, two things that I never want to touch, particularly accounting.
Don't blame you.
And then at that point, I was like, I had learned that I didn't necessarily want to work in a bank at least, and not that I learned, like, my internships taught me more about the environment that I wanted to be a part of versus anything else, which I think was super, super great. And when I graduated, there was a posting through the Career Center at Laurier for an asset management role at Dundee at the time, Dundee REIT. This was 2008 as well, so it was the middle of, I guess, the last really sort of large economic downturn. And I applied because I wanted to move out of my parents' house. So applied, wanted to leave Waterloo desperately, came in for the interview. I got called in. They told me I was wrong for the job, literally at the end of the interview. And I had one of those, like, real Ayesha moments where I actually burst into a monologue. Like I stood up, told them why they were wrong, fully like went into theatrical mode. They called me an hour later with a job offer. Like literally, they were like, "Who's this little analyst girl?" Fully like being like, "You're gonna regret this one day."
Just like
I literally just let them have it.
they called you for the same job.
Same job.
Okay.
I guess I was being interviewed by two people, the head of investments as well as the head of research and analysis at that time. And the head of investments was like, MBAs are flaky, blah, blah, blah. You're never, like, he was just testing me, obviously. And the head of research and analysis just kind of sat there like this the entire time. And I was like, dude, if you're going to go for it, this is the point you're going to go for it.
So it was like two guys interviewing you.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And not that I expected it to be any different, but I did not expect to be, like, this is my first real interview experience. Like, I've been working since I was in grade 9. This is my first real big job interview. And to be told you're wrong for it, like, I don't lose. So you're telling me I'm wrong, I'm gonna tell you why you're wrong right now. So got the job offer, took it for that very reason, had no idea what real estate was about at all, learned what a rent roll was like the next week and everything you needed to do. And lo and behold, it actually worked out to be serendipitous in the sense that it worked out to be the perfect balance of like quant and qualitative. And my personality evolved with the role too. And I did a personality test when I was in university, and I did one a couple of years ago, and it's weird, I'm the complete opposite. And part of that comes from, I think, my role and me having actually really enjoyed what I do. Right.
And did you feel like you fit in there off the bat?
Oh no, it's real estate. No part of me has ever fit in, and that's not being upset about it by any way, but working in the bank, it was definitely a white man's world, and then you showed up to real estate and it's a white man's world. And that's obviously changed over time. But when I first started, it was just, Dream Unlimited itself is, I would say, much more diverse than I've seen a lot of other organizations be on a lot of fronts, with women, with people of various backgrounds. But again, it was 2008, we were a lot smaller then, and it was still a lot of like white people. So I just worked my ass off trying to show them, listen, I'm gonna be really good at this. I have no relation to this industry whatsoever. I don't know anybody else in it, but I'm just gonna work super hard. And I think they like that.
And so how long were you working in that role for?
So I worked in asset management for 2 years. Argus models, leasing, all the things ground up. And then I got a chance to work on the first acquisition Dundee office did in January 2010, Adelaide Place, traded, and we ended up putting in a bid for it, ended up winning it, and I got to work on that deal, and I was hooked. Like, there was no part of me that wanted to update Argus models ever again. All I wanted to do was do deals. And this is like 2 years into like doing real estate, and I was like, no, I'm gonna be your deal person. But my role was still very much asset management. Of course, I would be exposed to deals, but I also wanted to do only deals at that point. So I actually got headhunted that time by Matrix, and got placed into a role that was purely transactional with White Rock REIT.
Yep.
And so I went over, so that was a weird transition in that everyone told me I was making the wrong move. Not because of like the role or the great opportunity I had a dream, but I lived downtown, I worked downtown, and the White Rock office was at the West Mall in Burnham Thorpe, and I did not have a license. So I would have to take the subway to Kipling and then the 112C into the office every morning and home every night, voluntarily, because I wanted to do deals. Granted, I ended up getting my license after doing that for 6 months and a car. So that obviously worked out in other ways, but it was just something like I was determined to do. And I remember when I took that job, my CEO, Michael Cooper, when I gave my notice, was one of the most like supportive people about it, being like, listen, you've been here for 2 years, completely understand you want to try other things, come home when you're ready. And that always stuck with me, just because it's been one of, like, it has been home to me for a very long time. Worked there for 2 years, learned a lot more about myself in the sense of like the things that are deal breakers for me in a working environment versus the things that I thought would be deal breakers but aren't really deal breakers. I think I learned more about myself as a personality versus necessarily just real estate. And then 2 years later, White Rock REIT got acquired by Dundee REIT. So I think it was March of 2012, I came back home. Full on for $1.2 billion, I think.
Do you think Michael was coming back to get you?
You know what's funny is he actually came into the White Rock office the day the deal was announced. And like I'm standing at the back of like the cafeteria or the lunchroom, and he's standing in the front with the CEO of White Rock REIT. And he made a joke where he was like, oh, we bought the company for Asia. And everyone's like, who the fuck is Ayesha? Like he could not say my name right for the life of him. And he did it on purpose, 100% he did it on purpose too. And like he looked at me and he smirked, and everyone's like, is he looking at that little brown girl in the back? And I was just like, Jesus Christ, like I can't even deal right now. And either way, he made the joke. I'm pretty sure the real estate was a real reason, but it ended up working out pretty well, because as soon as I came back, 2012 was a big year in that we IPO'd the industrial REIT, we bought Scotia Plaza, we ended up doubling the size of the industrial REIT, and who else knew how to work on deals and how Dream used to underwrite on top of like their existing team, but Ayesha also knew it. So I got thrown into the biggest mix of real estate, I think, of a lot of people's careers.
That's great.
It was awesome. It was phenomenal. There were times that me and my team would sleep under our desk, but it was like
the stories are real, eh?
Oh, the stories are fully real. Me and Angela, who actually still works with me at Dream, we would sit at our desk in like 3 a.m. and the cleaning lady would be coming by and we'd be belting out like NSYNC or All Saints, and like because we would have headphones in and be like, oh, we're scaring her again. Like there's these two crazy girls here every night. Either way. We worked hard. We knew that it was an opportunity for us too, and took advantage of it. And I honestly, I got lucky because of circumstance as well. So I think a lot of this industry is great. You can work really hard, but I also found chances and opportunities that were thrown at me, and that's a big part of the equation.
Like Michael gave you opportunity to take it,
yes,
kind of thing?
Absolutely. So like he's always been a good sponsor of mine. He's actually been my sponsor. But that being said, he's very, you have to deliver a good product, or there's like, why? Like you do a good job or you don't, right? Yeah. So as much as I do have a good relationship with him, I've also worked really hard, and he's seen me delivering, and I think over the years he's been like, okay, if she wants more, we'll throw more at her, and he's done that over the years. And so I've been exposed to, I think, a lot more in a very short amount of time because of that opportunity and just being part of that organization.
I think that's an interesting point, because I think a lot of people, but especially women in leadership roles, talk about working hard, and there is the work hard, but you also need someone to recognize that, to pull you up, to give you those opportunities.
100%. You have to have a sponsor, whether it's somebody who's going to be giving you the work or somebody who's going to be telling somebody else to give you the work. There is, I don't think you can understate how valuable that is in any industry, let alone just real estate, but it's something that is one of my biggest pieces of advice when I'm talking to anybody who's talking about getting into real estate.
And so now you've got to be the SVP, is it?
It's the SVP of investments, yes.
Okay. And in that experience, now being in real estate for so long, does it feel more like the place that you belong in, or is there still a feeling of being different in the industry?
Not anymore. It used to be a lot more profound. Now, you know what it is? I think when I first was moving into a transactional role, it used to confuse a lot of people when I would show up on the property tour and be the only person on the property tour, and they'd be like, okay. Or I'd walk into a meeting room at one point with my team, which was all 3 tall white males, and they would look to them versus me and be like, where's our water? And I'd be like, I can get you your water, but also if you want to do the deal, you're also going to be talking to me. And then that was earlier on. And now this industry is very tight knit, and I've been fortunate enough that I've worked with so many people across it that I've been able to build my brand with them. I think I am more recognizable. My name definitely stands out, so that helps now. And it's something where I don't necessarily feel like I'm different now, because I don't think they see me differently anymore. They don't look at me differently anymore. It's Ayesha, it's Ayesha, whatever. And it's something that I think about more so, I have to step away now to think about it. And I am so blessed and so fortunate that that's the case for me, because it's not the case for the majority of people.
Yeah, our industry certainly isn't always.
No, it's not. not at all. And it's amazing that that's something that's been a part of the conversation for a while now, and it's actually at the forefront of conversation, just because there's so much talent that's untapped. So much talent, and to be able to actually be part of that conversation and help that talent actually showcase what they're capable of, it's phenomenal.
Yeah, and a lot of companies say that there isn't enough talent, but then some companies are able to find it.
Absolutely, and I think that's part of just having a lens that actually encompasses everyone that wants to have a shot at the job, not just the ones that you think should have a shot at the job.
And when you go hire and build your team and manage people, how do you feel like the lens you've had has made you a better leader, a better manager in that role?
So for myself, as somebody who has not grown up in the industry or had any sort of relationship in it, I think I'm a big proponent of making sure that everyone who wants a chance at the job gets a chance to speak for it. And I don't care whether you're coming from the accounting group or you're coming right out of school or whatever that looks like. If you think you're going to be good for it, tell me why, and let's talk about it. When I hire, doing your job is great. I want you to be able to obviously run a DCF and do all the things that you should be able to do. A big part of it is also personality for me. And you're probably going to be my closest relationship. We're going to have dinners together. We're going to, you're going to know stuff about me that, you probably never wanted to know. So I need to make sure that you're somebody that's going to be able to handle it versus somebody that's going to be not going into HR issues here, but somebody that's not going to be fazed by it anytime soon. So it's got to be it's a marriage of sorts. So it's got to be a fit on that capacity too. And that marriage can come from anywhere. It can come from somebody that looks exactly like me or a complete opposite for me.
That's great to hear. And so through this story, you've gotten quite far in your career at a fairly young age. Has there been any like big challenges or hiccups or anything that's kind of made this I guess more difficult?
I mean, outside of the fact that the things that we've talked about, being a woman and a minority, and it's not something that I've been really super vocal about in terms of my career, but I do suffer from depression, and it's something that I've suffered from my entire life, and I do take medication for it, and as far as I know, it's working. So it's literally just like if you've got high blood pressure, you take medication for it. Some people choose not to, which is totally fine, and to each their own. But there are times where, like over the last couple of years, where I do not want to get out of bed, or I don't want to talk to anybody. My job is to talk to people. But that being said, it's something that Michael knows it. I've told him about it. If you work on my team, I will tell you about it because I need you to know who you're dealing with. And I've had such great support internally as well as externally for it. And if I go into like an episode or a bout of it, it's something that it's human. I recognize it in others. Not everyone deals with it, but everyone deals with something. And it's something it's been challenging along the way, absolutely. But again, I think it's made me not to sound cliche, but it's made me into who I am.
Okay. I mean, these days people talk about mental health issues like it's more in the spotlight, but at the same time,
there's still taboo.
Yeah, there's still a big stigma. People aren't really talking about it personally as much on a bigger scale. Like, how did you approach, like, I don't know if you probably didn't tell Michael day one.
No, I didn't.
In your interview.
Yeah, no. By the way, this is what you're going to be dealing with.
So, like, how did that come about? How did you deal with it until you were kind of more open about it?
So part and parcel of it is I've always been Dream's been an environment where a lot of people are very candid from day one. I wasn't necessarily as candid about my situation, but I know other people that have talked about things that their family members have gone through and so forth. So there was always a level of comfort that, hey, there's a level of trust here that's assumed. And then I think it was just at a point in my career where I was going through an episode where I was like, you just probably look like a complete weirdo to him at this fucking point. Like, one day you're smiling and like absolutely like bouncing off of walls, and the next day you're like, if anyone says good morning to you, you're gonna bite their heads off. And that happens to anybody, but the mood shifts, I mean, I sound like I'm bipolar now. Maybe I am, I have no idea. But that being said, the moods would actually swing quite aggressively. And so I just had to chat with him about it. I was like, dude, we need to talk, just so you know, like, something I deal with. And he was pretty like nonchalant about it. I was like, okay, thanks for letting me know. You take your time when you need to take your time. When's the next model gonna be done? Okay. It was so like, it's fine, it's human. Like, there's not, like, unless you want to talk more about it, like, I'm not gonna push you to do it. And I think, I mean, not just him, but my team has members in their family that deal with different things, and it just actually gave them the opportunity to be like, oh, by the way, you should know this about me. And I'm like, okay, this is great. Like, we're all just taking this 2.0 now.
Yeah. So by sharing, like, people then related to that, and we're able to talk to you about it.
Well, yeah, I think it just ends up like there's a level of like, you're trusting me with this, and it's something like, it is much more prevalent in terms of conversation now, but there's still a stigma attached to mental health, which I think will be there for a while, as much as we don't want it to be. I think as soon as I started the conversation, at least with my team, it became something that was just much like, hey, if she's telling us this, I think it's okay to tell her this. Yeah.
Yeah, like building that.
That's it. It's just the rapport with each other, and somebody's got to start it.
That's great. And do you feel like, or how long ago was that?
That I had the conversation with him? Oh, it's been years now. Probably like 5-6 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
And has that made your relationship potentially different with him as well, like being more open?
Oh, I don't think so. I think it was one of those things where I I was almost giving him like a piece of data to work with me. So I'm sure it definitely had, like, he definitely cares about it and will ask how I'm doing, and knows that if I'm behaving a certain way, that maybe Ayesha needs to like back off a little bit or take some time to herself. But for him, he's never treated me differently because of it, and I wouldn't want that. So I think he's like, oh, this is what I'm working with, now I know, and relationship moves on.
And what about in the industry? Like, I'm sure you haven't kind of gone out and told
No,
people.
I have a couple of friends that know. I have a couple of really good friends on the brokerage side, for example.
And how come you didn't feel like how was it that you were worried about the way people would react? It just wasn't relevant?
It's not even how they would react, is that they would not know how to react. So it's more so like, I didn't want to put them in the position of being like, oh, Aish, what can we do? Or how can I help you? Because you don't need to do anything, realistically. You just need to know it. I'm telling you because some days you call me 8 times and I don't want to answer your phone call and I'll just text you back, or some days I'll answer your first phone call. So it, again, like, it's a piece of data for you to understand of what you're dealing with on the other end. I'm still going to do my job and do it well. It's just, you might be communicating with me through a different form on that given day. So it was more so for them that I don't do it versus myself. It's also weird to be like, hey, let's go grab a beer, and by the way, I've got depression. So like, how do you bring it so?
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people deal with mental health issues.
Absolutely.
And there's no real forum of like, how do you?
No, there's not.
When.
There's not.
Yeah.
Segueing into it is very difficult. It's very difficult.
And how do you feel like that's impacted your ability to your leadership and your ability to manage people?
I am a very empathetic person, just based on who I am as a human from day one, and I think part and parcel of suffering from that as well. I hate the word suffering. I don't like saying it, but having depression coupled with who I am personally as a human being and things that I care about, coupled with I still need to get my job done, and the analytical side of me, I think all of that together is like the perfect recipe for somebody who gives a shit about the people as well as the work. So I think that has made me extremely fortunate in the sense that I've been able to build relationships in a very short amount of time, relatively speaking, that I think are going to be lifetime relationships.
Okay, that's great.
Here's knocking on wood.
Where can you tell us about the first time that you met Michael Cooper?
Oh, yes, absolutely. And he's probably going to be angry that I tell you this story. But it was, I think I was on the job for about a year. And as an analyst in asset management in 2009 at that point. And I was actually going to the bathroom and he was coming the other way and he walked by me and he just said, hey. And I just remember like this moment of like anger, like rage filled me, in the sense being like, why doesn't he say my name? So I actually said, hey, Michael, and then stopped him and was like, asked him what my name was. And he was a little bit thrown off, absolutely. I knew he recognized who I was, but his response was, does it have a U in it? And I was like, no, it really doesn't. It's like the last letter you should have picked anyways. So he, needless to say, he did not know my name. And I told him, okay, when you remember it, you know where I sit. And like, strutted off to the bathroom. Again, like, why am I living in this movie all the time? And went back to my desk afterwards and I was like, I'm gonna pack up, guys. And they're like, why? They're like, pretty sure I'm getting fired in about like 5 minutes. It's been awesome. Told my current team the story and they were like, really? Why would you ever do that? And I was like, I don't know. I have no fucking clue. And needless to say, for the next like 3 months, every time I would walk past like a boardroom that Michael would be in, he'd like scream my name, be like, hey, Ayesha, like scream it at the top of his lungs. Needless to say, he hasn't forgotten it, but the point was, if you can remember everyone else's name, why can't you remember mine? Because I know you're good with information.
That's a good story.
It is a good story. I think he remembers that one. Who I am in terms of background, it's almost like having two different faces that you put on at any given point in time. I mean, I come from a fairly liberal family, actually, in terms of I am Muslim, and my parents are Pakistani, and they've grown up here in the sense that my dad went to school here, and my mom has worked here since she was like 23 years old, so they're as much Western as they are Eastern. But that being said, they still don't understand what I do. Like, I think they're fully expecting to see my face on a park bench at some point, like, oh, she's in real estate. Absolutely, which is cool. Maybe I'll get my face on a park bench and make them happy one day. But there's a huge part of me that needs to reconcile, say, if I'm working Monday to Friday in the office and then I go home for the weekend, like, that's a very different headspace to be in at any given point in time, just because it's like I'm their child and I'm their daughter, and I don't know how to explain the fact that, like, who I am at work is very much who I am at home too, but in very different ways. So at home I'm loud, at home I'm outspoken, at work I am loud and outspoken. I get yelled at in both places for being that way, but that being said, I'm also loved unconditionally at home for being that way, and at work it's some people love me and some people don't love me, and that's completely okay as well, because that's part and parcel of hopefully being good at your job. Like, I think if people don't like you, then you're probably not good at your job, or as good as you could be, I should say. So there's a big part of me that's still very Eastern. Like, I watch Bollywood movies for fun. Literally on Friday night, I will like binge watch a bunch of Bollywood movies and like have the time of my life.
What?
I listen to indie music. I do a bunch of other things that are probably my friends in real estate don't know about.
Right.
But that's just who I am. It probably makes me the person that they know about on any given day. And vice versa. So if I'm at home with my family and I'm talking about something or whatnot, like, if I have a different point of view on it, it's probably because I've actually been communicating with people that have a different point of view on it, and I can articulate it better because I've been exposed to it. So it's like the perfect mix of a little bit of everything, and you just have to reconcile it based on an hour by hour basis and who you're talking to and what you're doing. And not that it's work, but it is something that I'm very cognizant of. When you're younger, there's some people that have all the answers and some people that don't have all the answers, and some people that think they have the answers but are scared to share it anyways. I've always been the one that thought she had the answer, but it's probably wrong, like imposter syndrome from day one of being born. And you're put in a room with a bunch of smart white guys and you're sitting there, but you're actually the one that ran the model and like looked at the rent roll and rent the leases. So you have to walk them through the full analysis. And then you quickly realize you know more about it than anyone else in the room. So that comes with practice. That comes from just being in the room and understanding that, listen, it's okay to be wrong, but you have to have an opinion. It's much more about conviction, it's much more about opinion, it's much more about thought process than the right answer. And getting the courage, and I use the word courage, specifically to speak up and have your opinion and be told it's wrong, is something that's not easy to find, but do it.
You have to practice.
That's all it is.
Yeah.
It's practice. It's being put in those situations. It's putting yourself in those situations. And you just practice, practice, practice. It doesn't come overnight. It's not that some people are blessed with it versus not blessed with it. Some people might have more of an aptitude for it, but it's not something you can't do.
You have to get comfortable being uncomfortable.
100%, 100%. And you have to use what your skill sets are to get yourself to that uncomfortable level. So one of the things that Michael said like a long time ago that has always resonated with me is don't try and be, and this is something I've heard obviously other places too, but there's certain things I'm really good at in real estate and some things that I'm not. And I'd always focus on the things that I wasn't, try and make them perfect. And he literally was like, why are you doing that? When you're really good at these things, why would you not just focus on those? Who gives a shit about the other one? Somebody else will do that. And I was like, oh, you're totally right. Like I'm wasting my time trying to perfect something that I'm not that good at. Why don't I be really good at the thing I'm good at and speak to that? And then I can obviously defer on the other points. So confidence comes with learning to become uncomfortable at some point.
So recently you put out there, I think it was on social media, that you were open to talking to people, or that you're open to kind of booking a conversation with people. Yeah. Do you want to tell us a bit about that process, why you did it, how that went?
Absolutely. So it was I think in March or April when we were all told we would have to be home, and thought it was going to be for 2 weeks, and then it ended up being till now. And I was much more active on LinkedIn and just seeing what other people were doing, just because you were also getting information that way and just seeing what people were up to. And I was getting a lot of inbounds for conversations from not just people already in the industry, but new grads, people that were looking at going back to school and whatnot. And the way I work is if you ask me for a coffee or a chat, I realized how it was working was if I had the time to reply to your email, I would say yes. And if I didn't have the time, I would forget about it, which I thought was completely unfair and not how I would want to be treated if I was the person that was reaching out to somebody. And I also remember when I was doing that earlier on, and I still do that to a lot of people in the industry, senior people, that how much it meant to me that they took the time to do that. So instead of, and it's not completely altruistic, but I just put the onus back on them. I put up a calendar online and said, hey, I'm gonna book off 3 hours every week, half-hour conversations, book yourself in, I'll make myself available, first come, first serve. That's it. So there's no part of it that's going to be like, oh, she replied to me, but not my friend.
Right.
So I also really enjoyed doing it, and I enjoy talking, as you can tell. I enjoy helping people a lot, and it's been something that, again, like was much more fulfilling for me being stuck at home. On top of doing my job, was that I felt like I was actually doing good out there without having to be out there right now.
And what did you get out of it?
You learn a lot about how people are thinking about this, what their thought process is with regards to not just the world and the economy, but also towards how they think their lives are going to look like going forward, what they think work will look like going forward, things that they think they should focus on versus what they thought they should focus on before when they go into interviews. Like there's so many different iterations of it. What I got from it was that there's a huge need for people to just talk. And a lot of it ended up just being pure conversations, a lot of it about real estate and work, but it was really more so, like people would be like, let's have a call, Aish. Absolutely. Get on the phone. I'm ready to talk about office or industrial real estate, land, whatever you want, let's do it. They would spend half an hour talking. And it was just one, and so then I got a bunch of information, which is great because those are data points for me in terms of talent going forward, what things that they're thinking about, how they want to be treated and so forth. But it ended up being much more of, it was a two-way relationship with every conversation.
And what kind of people reached out to you? Like, was there a certain demographic, age, like anything?
None.
Like that?
I am an economist by trade. I could not draw you like a proper like trend line with that. Like we'd be running regressions for a while. I don't think there was any sort of consistency in terms of either background, in terms of like education or working world, or what they look like or how old they were. It was literally like there's like random for work. Like somebody from the Yukon called me. There were people in like real estate in Toronto, and then there would be like somebody like who was thinking about moving to Toronto but now lives in like San Antonio. Like so completely like. So those conversations also very different. You're learning to speak with somebody who doesn't speak real estate versus people who are really well versed in it. And it's interesting the types of questions, like the ones that you would get from people that are completely coming into it blind would have probably the most profound questions, because you're like, oh shit, I never think about this. Like, that is the most basic question and I should have a very quick answer to it, but I don't, because I'm always so far along in the conversation already in my head to go back to step one, and to be able to do that in the pandemic with a variety of like minds and thought processes was phenomenal. But to go back to your question in my long-winded answer, there was no consistency between the people.
And what's next for you? Where do you go from here?
So this is actually a very exciting time in my life. Our conversation came at a very exciting time in my life in that, so my birthday was in October, and I just turned 38, and I was thinking about what happens when I turned 40. Not that that's like the end of the world, but also like, what do I want to be doing and what would I regret not having done? And it's something that I've been talking to Dream or Michael about for some time, is potentially trying something else out. So I ended up actually giving my notice, and I'm going to be leaving at the end of the year. Not because I don't love what I do or the people, but there's other things that I've wanted to try that I'm going to go do now. So, January I'm going to Barbados, so I will be there for the month. I will not be doing anything. I'm going to learn to swim, actually. So I don't know how to swim, so I just signed up for swim lessons. I really want to be able to jump off of a boat and not worry about dying at some point.
Good idea.
Swim with a turtle or something, right?
Yeah.
And then in February, I actually signed up for an exec coaching course. So I want to get certified as a coach. It's something that I've been thinking about for a while. I have went through work, an executive coach, and just having worked with her for the last couple of years, I've actually just really loved what she does. And that only became something that was obvious to me is after having worked with her, obviously. And so I'm going to spend February and March working through my courses, and then obviously through everything that takes to actually get certified. And then I'm hoping post that, I'm going to figure out what the proper offering will look like, but it would definitely have to do something with women and minorities, as well as real estate, and put that together in a package to help people not just that look like me, but people that look exact opposite of me, and how to deal with people that look like me. So I'm not sure what that looks like in terms of like like my own whatever business or whatnot. Like I haven't even, no idea. Like I just registered a domain name yesterday. That's all I got. But outside of that, it's something that I'm really excited about because I really give a shit about it. So
yeah. I mean, was it scary to, like, you have this role that so many people aspire to, and then you're just quitting?
Yeah, I still haven't told my parents. They have no idea. All of a sudden they're like, Ayesha, you're coming home again? I'm like, yup, make dinner. I'm like, okay. And then I have to like put fake phone calls so they think I'm super, super busy. But they know I'm going to Barbados in January, so that's like a segue into this conversation over Christmas. But it's something that is terrifying and super, super exciting at the same time. Worst case scenario, it doesn't work out, and I work in real estate. So it's all risk reward. And it's something that most of my decisions in my life have been made on what would I regret the most / the least. And I think if I don't try this at this point in my life, I will always regret it. Mm-hmm. So that makes it easy enough to live with.
Yeah. I mean, so many people are worried about what can happen, that the fear overtakes, like, what should I try?
Absolutely.
And there will always be a job there. You know, like there's always an opportunity.
So many people be like, oh my God, we're so jealous. I wish I could do this. I'm like, you can. I mean, I have less constraints than a lot of other people. I don't have children, and I don't have a lot of things tying me down to Toronto necessarily. But that being said, I think if there's a will, there's a way. I mean, everyone is welcome to live vicariously through me, but it's probably going to be better when you do it yourself.
Yeah.
That's an interesting question because I've asked myself that question. So if I'm going through depressive episode that's more aggravated than, say, previous ones, like I step back and I'm like, oh, what's gonna fix this right now? And nothing. Nothing will do it. It's like, I don't want to go into what that feels like, but it's definitely hopelessness. It's definitely being discouraged. It's definitely feeling like, ugh, I don't want to do anything right now, and I just want to be on the couch. And there's nothing that's going to be in that moment that's going to be like, get up, Ayesha, and let's like go take over the world, which I'm usually like on any given day. It's time. It's having a support system. It's just giving into it. There's no control. It's complete lack of control, and it's a complete lack of being able to shift your thought process. All you can do is recognize that you're going through it. So recognizing that this is a bubble that you're living through, and there's going to be something, like it will end at some point, is the only thing that gets you through it. And knowing that this could be for 2 days or it could be for like 2 weeks is part and parcel of just who you are as a human being. So a lot of people like to exercise. Some people do yoga. Things work for different people. I have friends that have depression that do not take any medication, and they're great because they found other means of balancing themselves out. So to each their own. For me, like, it's just more of I'm gonna plow through it. I don't have to do anything differently other than just get through it.
Thanks for sharing.
You're quite welcome.
Well, thanks Ayesha, for being here today. This was great.
Oh, thank you very much for asking me. I appreciate it.
And we'll
I'll keep you guys posted, obviously.
Yeah, keep us posted. We'll wait for a postcard.
Absolutely. I will send you, you can follow me on Instagram and see my Bayesian adventures if you want, but I'll make sure that you guys are fully in the loop as to what my next exciting venture entails.
Sounds great. Thank you.
Thank you.